Hello and welcome. My name is Kaylee Jo and I make content all about my experiences as a theater educator, and we are very, very close to Halloween, which is my favorite holiday of the year.
This is Halloween, this is Halloween.
And so today I am going to be sharing my top 10 personal favorite shows for the spooky season. And these are all shows that are able to be licensed by your group so you can actually perform every single one of these.
It's showtime.
So hear me out. Don't underestimate how much more likely somebody will be to go see your show if it associates with something that is already happening in their daily lives. So for example, we generally perform shows like Elf the Musical, It's a Wonderful Life, and White Christmas around Christmas, because people are more likely to go see a Christmas show around Christmas time. There's just something about snowball fights and singing about the spirit of the holidays that just doesn't hit the same whenever it's the middle of summer.
It's Christmas time!
And I think the same can be said for our darker themed shows. I'm not saying that they won't go over well if you perform them in other times of the year, but I think it's not a bad idea to try to target your audience whenever they're already potentially feeling in a spooky mood.
5 more minutes. I was just getting comfortable.
So, with all of that being said, let's jump into my top 10 favorite shows for spooky season. These are not in any particular order because these are my personal top 10 favorites and it would be very, very difficult for me to choose a favorite one. But feel free to comment down below if you have a very strong opinion about any of the titles that I mentioned or you feel like I left something out. Also, disclaimer, because we are talking about darker themed shows, that means that a lot of these are leaning towards PG-13 and R ratings. So if that is something that you are uncomfortable discussing, no hurt feelings, feel free to click off of the video now. And by the way, this is Daphne. Daphne, say hi. She's very excited to be on the channel today. Yeah. Let's start out with the demon barber of Fleet Street himself, Sweeney Todd.
Come and visit your good friend Sweeney.
So I am sad to say that there are just a lot of musicals floating around out there that might have beautiful music but don't have very strong stories. So although it might be beautiful to listen to, the actors just don't have a lot to work with, but Sweeney Todd is not one of those. The story of Sweeney Todd is so heartbreaking that you can't help but cheer for Sweeney even as he paints the town of London red with the blood of his enemies. And the music is absolutely stunning because, you know, Sondheim. On a side note, I personally really enjoyed the Tim Burton adaptation of Sweeney Todd, and tell me if I'm crazy here, but I feel like it's somewhat of a full circle moment for Johnny Depp as an actor, because back in the 90s he played Edward Scissorhands, and that was also with Tim Burton, and so there he was playing this tortured character with scissors for hands, and now here he is in Sweeney Todd playing an equally tortured character, but instead he uses razors as a weapon. So I don't know, for some reason every time I think of Tim Burton Sweeney Todd I think of Edward Scissorhands, and it just feels like a very full circle moment. On a side note, has anybody else seen the videos circulating the internet of like an Edward Scissorhands dance production? I don't know if it's a ballet or what exactly. I don't believe it's a musical. It's supposed to be opening in November of 2023, but every time I see these videos or images pop up on one of my feeds, I'm like just captivated by it. It looks so beautiful and so unexpected. Like not a story that I would have applied to dance, but it looks pretty cool. So, anywho, just wondering if I'm the only one. Sorry for the tangent. I mean, it's a little related, but still, tangent. Speaking of another musical with an R rating and a strong cult following, you cannot talk about spooky season musicals without mentioning Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It's astounding.
This one is available for licensing through Contd Theatricals, and the cast is only 9 people. I'm also certain that you would bring in a big audience this one because it really is a Halloween favorite. But it is worth noting that whenever you start producing these shows that have that really strong cult following, that people can get a little testy about like their expectations for your show because it's something that is so important to them. So just keep that in mind anytime you try to tackle one of these shows with a really, really strong audience behind it. we have Frank Wildhorn's musical Dracula. So this is based on the classic Bram Stoker novel of the same name, and the music is incredible. The story is dark and tortured and mature and everything that you would expect from Dracula the musical. It is an emotional roller coaster to watch and listen to, and I think it is absolutely beautiful. I am super sad to share that it just never got a lot of traction, at least not here in the US. So I really don't feel like Frank Wildhorn gets enough appreciation for this incredible piece.
Shine brighter than gold, life after life.
But it is perfect for spooky season, so it is on the list. Up next, we have another Frank Wildhorn piece that fortunately has gotten slightly more attention than Dracula, although not nearly enough in my humble opinion, and that is Jekyll and Hyde. Before I utter one more word about this show, I would like to offer a piece of advice, and that is, if you've never heard of this show before and you are thinking that it sounds interesting and you would like to look into it more, and you go to YouTube and type in Jekyll and Hyde the musical, please do not base your opinion of this show off of the early 2000s recording with David Hasselhoff as the title character.
There's such a fine line between a good man and a bad. David Hasselhoff on Broadway in Jekyll and Hyde.
This is no day at the beach.
The role of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is possibly one of the most complex roles in musical theater history, and I just personally don't feel that David Hasselhoff was up to the task. If you want to watch somebody absolutely incredible in the role, I really recommend Rob Evan. He's my personal favorite.
You'll never be able to separate Jekyll from Hyde.
But honestly, everybody who came before him was great as well. So that's just my personal opinion. I'm sorry if you absolutely love David Hasselhoff, but that's just how I feel about it. Right, Daphne? I just realized that Seuss is upside down in the back. Anywho, I digress. This show is really dark and the story is really strong. So if you can get some talented actors in there, similar to Sweeney Todd, I feel like you can simultaneously terrify your audience while breaking their heart every single time. I would venture to say that this piece is not appropriate for high schools to perform. Of course, I say that, and then if you look on YouTube, there's actually an amazing recording of a private Christian school in Florida that did this show, and it's great. So I don't know, me personally, I would only tackle it with adults, but that's just me. Let's step out of the dark and dreary for one moment with a more comedic piece, and that is Mel Brooks' musical Young Frankenstein.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
So anything that combines Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder is sure to be absolute comedic gold. I love the 1974 film, and I feel like the musical keeps a lot of that same charm. It can also be a little edgy from time to time. It is rated PG-13, so I think you could absolutely perform this with a high school group if you wanted to. I am fully prepared to get some hate for this one because it can be a very divisive title, and that is Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera.
You have come here for one purpose and one alone.
Full disclosure, this is my favorite musical of all time. I know, so cliche, but at the center of this questionable love triangle, we have a madman of Universal Monsters fame, and I am so here for it. Plus, I really like a good rock opera vibe. Contrary to popular belief, this title is actually available for licensing to schools and community groups. I personally wouldn't tackle it unless I had some really talented adults, a beautiful top-notch performance space, and a boatload of money. This next musical is actually based on a board game, and that is Clue the Musical. It is actually available as both a play and a musical, so you've got options there. I love this show because of the audience familiarity with the characters and the story. And it has kind of this audience interaction element because there are multiple endings depending on who is the murderer. So it kind of keeps the audience guessing. It is like a light PG-13, but could absolutely be performed by high schools. You can do a quick Google search and see all the reasons why this absolutely bombed on Broadway.
Way to go, Carrie!
Carrie the Musical. But at its core, it has beautiful music, strong female characters, and some spooky vibes. So for those reasons, it made it on my list. This next one fell on and off my list because I don't love the plot. Some of the music is great, but some of it is meh, and that is Addams Family the Musical.
You're an Addams.
I actually made an entire video comparing the full-length version to the junior version, and I will link that up above for your reference. But here's why it ultimately stayed on my list. First of all, I have super fond memories growing up watching Addams Family, the TV show, and the movies, so there's a little bit of nostalgia working here for me. Also, because of the title recognition, I promise you this show is going to sell tickets, which also makes it a strong contender whenever you're considering shows. Secondly, the dark comedy in this show is top-notch. It is so funny. And finally, there's a really strong ensemble in the show called The Ancestors. It's basically a bunch of dancing dead people that are interwoven into a lot of different scenes, and I absolutely love all of the opportunities that provides for performers. So for those reasons, it stayed on my list. I also have some honorable mentions that did not make my top 10, but before we get to those, let me share my final choice, and that is the musical theater staple, Little Shop of Horrors.
Missy Mo.
I've seen this show done so many different ways, but I seem to enjoy it the most whenever the production really leans into the grimy darkness that is Skid Row, the madness of the dentist, and the absurdity that is a giant man-eating plant. So for all of those reasons, it continues to be a great choice for schools and community theaters alike. Honorable mentions that did not make my list for various reasons include Mean Girls the Musical, because I wanted to put it on there, but it only has one Halloween song, so I just didn't really feel like it deserved it.
I'd make it Halloween.
Beetlejuice was also on my honorable mentions, and it absolutely would have been in the top 10, but unfortunately, the licensing is not yet available for that one, so it did not fit my self-made criteria.
Because I myself am strange and unusual.
Zombie Prom was also super close for me, as was Nevermore, the musical. Please let me know all of your feelings in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a safe, spooky season, and as always, break a leg.